Welcome to my story time by mybooksummary.com. Get ready for quick wisdom of countless stories and explore. The Lightning Thief by Rick Riordan. Percy Jackson was not your average 12-year-old. He wasn't the kind of kid who got perfect grades or made his teachers proud. No, Percy was the kind of kid who got kicked out of every school he attended. And not just for the usual reasons, talking in class, forgetting homework, or daydreaming. No, Percy had a knack for attracting strange, unexplainable disasters. Take his most recent incident at Yancey Academy, a private school for troubled kids. During a school field trip to the Metropolitan Museum of Art, he was really trying, to be on his best behavior. He was standing near a display of ancient Greek statues, half listening to the tour guide, when his math teacher, Mrs. Dodds, suddenly called his name. She had always given him the creeps. Small, sharp-eyed, and always glaring at him like he had personally insulted her entire family, she was the one teacher he actively tried to avoid. But that day, she singled him out and asked him to follow her into an empty room. And that's when Percy's life changed forever. One moment, Mrs. Dodds was scolding him. The next, she sprouted leathery bat wings, her eyes glowing red, and launched herself at him with claws bared. Percy stumbled back, his heart pounding. Was this a nightmare? He barely had time to think before something flew toward him. A pen, tossed by his Latin teacher, Mr. Brunner. Instinctively, Percy caught it and clicked the cap. And suddenly, the pen was no longer a pen. It was a glowing bronze sword. Mrs. Dodds, or whatever she really was, screeched and lunged again. Somehow, without knowing what he was doing, Percy swung the sword. A flash of light, a burst of golden dust, and then she was gone. Percy stood there, panting, gripping the sword. What just happened? The bigger question was, why did no one remember Mrs. Dodds? His best friend, Grover Underwood, looked confused when Percy asked about her. Even Mr. Brunner acted like Mrs. Dodds had never existed. Something was very, very wrong. Strange conversations and an even stranger summer. After the museum incident, Percy noticed Grover acting weird. He was nervous all the time, glancing over his shoulder as if they were being followed. He kept saying things that made no sense, like, "We have to get you to safety," and "The summer solstice deadline is approaching." Percy had no idea what that meant, but before he could get any answers, things got worse. He was expelled from Yancey Academy. Again. So he went home to his mom, Sally Jackson, who was the one person in the world who truly cared about him. She was warm, kind, and always smelled like fresh cookies. But she had a terrible taste in men. Enter Gabe Ugliano, or Smelly Gabe, as Percy liked to call him. His stepfather was a disgusting, selfish man who treated Sally like a servant. He spent his days playing poker and eating bags of nachos, and his favorite hobby was making Percy's life miserable. But one night, Percy's mom took him on a surprise trip to Montauk Beach. It was their special place, where they had spent summers together when he was little. The ocean made Percy feel calm, like it belonged to him somehow. That night, as they sat watching the waves, Sally told Percy something he never expected to hear. "Percy, there's something I need to tell you about your father." But before she could explain, a storm exploded over the horizon, and with it came a monster. The Minotaur attack and a mother's sacrifice. The storm came fast and violent, the wind howling as the trees bent like they might snap in half. But the real horror wasn't the storm, it was the creature chasing them. A Minotaur. Towering over them, the beast had the body of a massive, muscular man, but the head of a raging bull. Steam puffed from its nostrils as its burning red eyes locked onto Percy. Sally grabbed Percy's hand and ran. "Get to the hill. Don't stop, Percy." Grover, who weirdly enough had goat legs instead of feet, stumbled beside them, barely able to keep up. But the Minotaur was faster, stronger. It reached out with a massive fist and grabbed Percy's mother. She didn't scream. She didn't struggle. She just looked at Percy with tearful eyes and whispered, "Go." Then golden light exploded. Sally disappeared, vanishing like she had never been there at all. Percy lost it. Everything inside him boiled over. With pure rage and grief burning in his veins, he did something no normal kid should have been able to do. He ripped off one of the Minotaur's own horns, and with a primal roar, drove it straight into the beast's chest. The Minotaur shuddered, groaned, and collapsed into dust. Percy stood there, shaking, clutching the broken horn in his hands. Then the world went black. Camp Half-Blood, a place for demigods. When Percy woke up, he wasn't in a hospital. He was somewhere completely different. A camp. But not just any camp. Camp Half-Blood, a secret haven for kids like him. Demigods. It turned out that Percy's father wasn't just some random guy who left when he was a baby. No, Percy was the son of a god. A real, actual Greek god. And all the strange things in his life? The reason he never fit in? The reason he could do things no normal kid could do? It was because he wasn't normal. He was half god, half mortal. And his best friend, Grover? Not just a kid. He was a satyr assigned to protect Percy. The camp director, Mr. D, who was actually Dionysus, the god of wine and not happy about his job, and Percy's old teacher, Chiron, who was secretly a centaur, explained everything. The Greek gods were real. They still existed, living on Mount Olympus, which was now located above the Empire State Building. And every so often, they had children with mortals, children who became heroes. Like Percy. And Percy's father? He was none other than Poseidon, the god of the sea. A dangerous quest, the stolen lightning bolt. But being the son of Poseidon came with a problem. Zeus, the king of the gods, was furious. His master bolt, the most powerful weapon in existence, had been stolen. And he believed Percy was the thief. Now, Percy had 10 days to return the bolt before war broke out between the gods. So, with Annabeth Chase, a brilliant daughter of Athena, and Grover, his satyr best friend, Percy set off on a dangerous quest across the country to find it. Their journey was filled with danger. They were attacked by Medusa, tricked in a deadly casino, and nearly killed by a chimera. Eventually, their quest led them to the underworld, where they faced Hades himself, only to discover that the bolt was never there. The real thief? Luke Castellan, Percy's friend and mentor, who had secretly betrayed them all. Final thoughts, a new beginning, a new destiny. Percy Jackson had gone from being an ordinary, troubled kid to a hero who had stood before gods, fought monsters, and survived an impossible quest. But as he stood back at Camp Half-Blood, watching the sun dip below the horizon, he realized that his journey had only just begun. He had changed. The boy who once felt like he didn't belong anywhere had found a place. A home where kids like him existed, where gods were real, where adventure was just another part of life. He had faced the truth about his father, a god he had never known, and realized that he wasn't abandoned. Poseidon had always cared in his own distant, godly way. But along with that revelation came the weight of responsibility. Percy had seen the truth behind the shadows. The world of the gods wasn't just about power and glory. There were secrets, betrayals, and dangers lurking beneath the surface. Luke Castellan, a friend and someone he had trusted, had turned out to be the real thief, working for Kronos, the Titan king who had been long thought to be defeated. But now it was clear, Kronos was rising. The war wasn't over. It had only been delayed. Stay tuned for more enlightening content. Head over to www.mybooksummary.com. Don't forget to subscribe and share the magic with friends, and let's grow together through the power of books and interesting stories.